So I'd like to introduce our presenters for today. We'll first be hearing from ResultsPositive CEO, Mr. John Furner, as he walks us through some of the strengths of our new strategic partnership with MeisterPlan and how their solutions fit into the portfolio of products and services here at ResultsPositive. We'll then be favored to hear from Brian Hintz, the VP of Business Development and Alliances at MeisterPlan, as we explore some of the Lean PPM methodology and new techniques to improve IT planning and portfolio analysis on your team. And with that, we'll go ahead and turn the time over to John. John, you there?
Thanks so much, Sean. Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. Thanks again for attending our webinar today. We're really excited the opportunity here in partnering with MeisterPlan and providing you, our customers, with an exclusive look at the MeisterPlan solution and how it can simplify your IT planning initiatives and efforts. So thanks again, Sean, for the introduction. For those of you that we've worked with in the past, but we wanted to kind of highlight some things that are new at ResultsPositive, and it really has to do with our new strategic partnerships. So many of you, we've been working with Micro Focus and HP for many years. We're also working with ServiceNow and helping customers select and implement their ServiceNow solutions, typically around IT business management, PPM, and our legacy focus areas around application portfolio management. MeisterPlan is one of our new strategic partners, and so we're excited at the opportunity with MeisterPlan. We feel it fits a big need in the marketplace, and also with Apptio, continuing on our focus around IT financial management and technology business management. So that's kind of the core things that what's new with ResultsPositive is being more agnostic and providing our customers with access to industry-leading solutions. So thanks again for joining today, and we want to let you know some of our expanded capabilities and partnerships that we're assisting customers with today. In terms of why MeisterPlan and why did we want to partner with MeisterPlan, we see a large opportunity on top of the existing PPM solutions to really simplify the portfolio planning and resource planning activities and getting visibility into resource capacity in a very simple and easy way. And so we feel that MeisterPlan provides a solution to meet that need. We also see that there's a need for simplifying strategic planning, specifically around a what-if scenario planning and creating different versions of those plans and seeing how those plans would impact your overall resource constraints. And then we really also wanted to make sure that our customers were being able to leverage their current investment and their current data in PPM so that they aren't losing what they've already built. And so that's the core reasons why we've partnered with MeisterPlan. We feel it really helps our customers with speed, so it provides them an ability to quickly create and manage those annual plans. So it gives them a great customer experience. Many of our customers are looking for that great UI and user experience in using the solution. And then the result of being able to do that in a simple and quick fashion increases the efficiency of the organization and simplifies the planning process. And so really excited today to have our partner MeisterPlan join us today. And so I'm going to turn it over to Brian Hintz, VP of Business Development with MeisterPlan, and he's going to walk us through an overview and then a demonstration of the MeisterPlan solution. So Brian, thanks again for joining us today, and really appreciate the partnership, and I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, thanks so much, John, and thanks everyone for joining us. We're also really excited about this partnership, and I'd like to sort of walk you through a little bit about the MeisterPlan and ResultsPositive story, and then give everyone a quick demonstration of how the product works and how our methodology works. So, first and foremost, at MeisterPlan, we recognize that it's really complicated to run a business, and whether you're the CEO or you're working in the office of the PMO, or maybe you're even in a smaller business and you're just an individual team member, it's really difficult to understand the complexities of what resources you have, when they're available, what you're committed to help you really understand what you can actually complete as a business. And so part of MeisterPlan's mission and part of the Lean PPM methodology is to help companies make plans that work. And in that vein, we think we've developed both a methodology and a tool, and critical partnerships that help us deliver that to customers in a really meaningful way. So historically, a lot of project portfolio management might be viewed as a very linear process, right? So you collect new ideas for projects that you want to undertake. You make decisions on what projects you are going to undertake based on some input of corporate strategy and relative need, and maybe sometimes who's making the request, and then you go execute on that project. And of course, projects are always delivered on time and under budget, and so you don't need to follow up once the project gets to the execution phase, and you simply go back to the beginning to the collection phase. And what everyone on the phone probably recognizes is that that's not how the real world works, right? The real world is dynamic, and people would go out sick, and corporate strategies change, and sometimes executive leaders have pet projects that need to be prioritized, and so it's a much more dynamic and constantly changing environment. And so the truth is that you have this ongoing, constant process of new ideas being presented to the business, and that's something that businesses should foster, right? That's something that you want to actually encourage, and having a very strict, rigid process sometimes discourages that, because we're not taking new ideas right now, is an answer that sometimes people get. And so recognize that that's a cycle that will continue forever. Recognize that the projects that are currently being executed on are ever changing, right? They're living beings that, again, depending on a variety of factors, due dates can pull forward, can get pushed back, priorities can change. And so understanding the dynamic of what's actually happening in real time with my projects can have a dramatic impact on what can I commit to for additional projects, right? And how are we viewing our prioritization across our portfolio relative to the reality of, this project's delayed or that project got done early. And then sometimes corporate strategy changes over time, or again, sometimes executives have pet projects that for a variety of reasons need to be prioritized. And so what we've tried to do is build a methodology that lets you take all of those factors into account and build a tool that gives you the ability to quickly and easily visualize what the implications are and what the realities are within your business. We also recognize that in spite of everyone's best efforts, sometimes people don't make these efforts, but in spite of your best efforts to standardize on specific tools across your organization, sometimes people still use tools that they're familiar with and that they bring from previous careers, and that could be as simple as a Microsoft Excel sheet, or sometimes individual teams will just go buy a Jira package and not tell anyone, and sometimes it's maybe not so nefarious, and it's just, hey, our marketing team uses Smartsheet, and so we need to figure out how to plug that in, and that's reality, right? And so what one of the benefits of MeisterPlan is that we're not specifically dependent on the tools that you're using, and as a result, we can actually give you a view across many of those tools so that it truly is an organizational-wide view. And again, when it comes to strategic planning, that can help very significantly, because now I'm not making guesses about people's availability. I'm not making guesses about what work people are working on, or I'm not making guesses about the status of projects. I can actually make actual decisions based on real data. So I think that's a critical component, and the likelihood is either between our API or some of our integrations or the work that ResultsPositive is doing, we can integrate with just about anything. And so we've got customers with a wide swath of tools that they're plugged into with MeisterPlan. And so to help facilitate this reality of how business actually works, we've developed a methodology that we call Lean PPM, which hopefully is clear in the title what our objective is, right? I think a lot of traditional portfolio management processes are very onerous, again, can be very linear, and often are very limiting in who can participate in the decision-making process, because you need to have a really deep understanding of a lot of data and a lot of tools. And sometimes that in itself can be a limiting factor to making progress, because not everyone's working with the same assumptions and understandings and data. And so what we're trying to do is be that glue between a corporate strategy of where are we trying to go as a business and how do we get there, and that lower level detail of actual task management, right? So how do I assign work to individuals with due dates, and how do they check that work back in when it's complete? And we are not designed to address either of those layers. We're designed to marry those two things so that we can help companies take data about the status of their current projects, and about the availability of their resources, and about the new projects that a business may want to take on based on corporate strategy and direction, and build a visual roadmap that shows you how you can accomplish the most possible with the resources you have, or how you can build a roadmap that requires, that takes into account new resources that you need. And there's a lot more content behind this available on our website. And again, ResultsPositive is well trained and educated in in the methodology. But the idea is that this is it's more than just a product, right? What we're trying to deliver is a way to help you operate your business more efficiently. And so there's a methodology that we've developed around how you take all of these different factors into account and build a process that is not overly onerous, that helps you maintain a high level of efficiency, but still gives you those critical strategic decisions that you need to be making as a business. And so there's again a bunch of resources available here that can kind of help you build that process out. And we've got a lot of experience and helping our customers be successful in leveraging MeisterPlan to develop this new methodology within their business. And the truth is, a lot of times this is not that far off from what people are doing already, or at least what people are trying to get towards. And so a lot of times what we're doing is helping people kind of achieve goals that they already may have in terms of how they can run more efficiently, but by leveraging some different technologies. And so to dovetail with that, obviously, we've got a tool, which I'll show you in just a moment, called MeisterPlan. And the idea is that we're trying to help leadership in your business make data-driven decisions based on reality, right? And we all know that in many cases, decisions sometimes get made based on sort of gut feeling or based on inferences. And it's maybe you're reasonably successful doing that, but a lot of times having actual data helps people when they have to have difficult conversations in particular. And so that's where MeisterPlan can give a really quick, obvious visualization of what are the implications to our resources and our project plan if we try and change prioritization, for example. And then the other thing is, whether you have a formal PMO or whether it's less formal and you don't call it a PMO, but you have people who are responsible for how the business is managing the business. They often don't have a detailed view of what's going on across the business, because sometimes people, again, are using different tools and they're just sort of keeping that data among their team, and status updates are onerous and they don't come very often. And so leveraging a tool like MeisterPlan can help you build that picture so that those critical decision makers and influencers now actually have a view of what's happening across our business. And then obviously, we don't want to create a process that's so onerous for the project managers and the individual contributors that they have to spend hours at the end of every week creating reports. And we hear that often from our customers, right? That just the process of capturing the data from whatever method or system they're using to manage their actual work and putting that in a format that people can sort of get status on is sometimes as much work as it is to actually do the work, right? And so one of the benefits of MeisterPlan is that we're trying to take the minimum amount of data that's needed to build the maximum amount of impact. And so this doesn't require a deep, detailed work from the individual contributors and project managers on an ongoing basis. And so ultimately our objective here is to help you identify and resolve your resource constraints in real time. And again, in just a moment, you'll see exactly how that manifests itself. But that is often the one thing when it comes to project prioritization across your portfolio that is most often the thing that people don't really have a good view into. Is it's not what projects do we want to do and when would we like to do them. It's based on the resources we have and based on the availability of those resources in the future, what can we do? And so we're designed to help you answer those questions. It gives you a really powerful and easy way to build what if scenarios. So now I can take that status, take a snapshot of it, and then play around with it as much as I want. So I can develop maybe a recommendation for an alternative proposal for how we manage our portfolio. And I can present that in many different ways. And again, I'll show you in just a moment what that looks like. And then it gives you the ability to make top-down decisions based on your actual data. So put your project data into MeisterPlan, and now I'm not making decisions based on assumptions and based on guesswork, but I'm making them based on actual data. And we find that that's really important. Again, having data-based decision-making is often the difference between a project being successful and failing. It's something where often it's hard to push back on executives who are making demands without that data. And often executives don't know what demands to even be making without that data because they don't understand the implications of what the changes will be. And one thing that we've found across our customer base is that whether you work in pharmaceuticals or technology or consumer packaged goods or consulting, whether you're a several 100,000 person company or a several person company, that people universally face these same challenges, right? How do I know what I can commit to as a business, and how do I put the highest priority, the highest value opportunities first, and not put myself in a position where I've committed to things that I actually cannot accomplish? And so we found through our customer base a set of processes that, again, ResultsPositive is helping us with to deliver to customers that helps recognize those patterns and address them within your specific business. And so what I'll do now is I'll walk through really briefly a demonstration of what MeisterPlan looks like, how the tool operates, and then we can open it up for questions. And so now we're looking at a screen of MeisterPlan, and you'll notice that it's divided into a couple of different sections. So I'll walk you through the product and then sort of show you how it interacts. So on the top, you'll see that I have my projects on the left here, and they're listed in order of priority. And I'll come back in a moment to explain why that's particularly relevant. But again, as we talk about prioritization of projects, this is a very simple, easy way to quite literally stack rank my projects based on priority. You'll notice that they have their associated timelines next to them in a Gantt format. And again, I'll come back to sort of how you can use those to manipulate and update the data. And then you'll also notice that I have this must-have line, right? So everything above here is something that my organization has committed to doing. So we're absolutely going to deliver the projects that are above this line. And I can pretty easily change where that line is. I can also change individual projects and where they fall within the prioritization. But that's a very easy visual cue to anyone involved in your decision-making process that if it's not above this line, then we have not committed to it as an organization. And conversely, you'll see that we also have this cutoff line, and obviously those are things that we are not committing to. And sometimes that means we're simply deferring them and deferring the decision until a later date. Sometimes it means we have no intention of doing that project. We are not going to fund it. And again, I can pretty easily change where that cutoff line is, or I can pretty easily drag projects to be below or above the cutoff line. So it gives me a really quick, easy visual cue of what are the most important things we're working on, how do they line up against each other on a calendar, and how do they line up against each other from a prioritization perspective. What have we committed to? What have we not committed to? And then if I look down below, I can see my resources as laid out on this histogram. And so you'll see on the far left that I have roles defined, so junior consultant, senior consultant, developers, project managers. And then if I click in, you'll see that I actually have both roles and individuals listed out, right? So I have people within that role, and then I have sort of a placeholder for that role. And then you'll see that each individual and each role has a histogram associated with their work and the work that they are committed to. And so, again, getting back to helping you make fast but data-driven decisions, at a glance, I can immediately see that I have some over-allocation in certain resources during certain periods of time. And so, without doing anything else, I immediately recognize, hey, there's an issue with some of my projects and some of my resources. And based on the way I have things laid out here, I can see pretty quickly that in sort of the December, January timeframe that I'm probably not going to be able to get all the work done that I currently have slated. So nice, quick, easy visual cues. You'll also see, I won't talk too much about this today, but you'll also see that we have some financial data. And so you can put in information about, either capital expenditures associated with projects, or we will automatically calculate based on the hourly rate and the number of hours assigned per resource. We'll calculate the operating expense for a project, and then you can input data for things like, what's the expected return on investment, and then you can map that out over time, and that can be another critical decision point for you, which is, maybe I from a capital perspective, I need to put a couple projects sooner that have a faster ROI, or maybe I'm happy putting a couple projects in that have a longer ROI, but maybe a bigger ROI. But gives you another dimension by which to judge what projects you want to fund and when.
Hey, Brian.
Yeah.
We had a question from Fonalogston asking whether or not you're able to see what individuals are working on rather than just by role or.
Absolutely. So great question, and you're leading right into the next part of the conversation. So perfect timing. So let's say I want to see what this person is working on. Then I simply click on that resource, and then above you'll see that it filters out just the projects that that person is assigned to. And so now I can immediately see where the resource constraints happen, and I can decide to make adjustments accordingly. And so those adjustments could be to either modify when the project is supposed to be taking place. And so you'll see as I drag the project timeline through, you can see in real time it shows what the resource implications are for not just that individual, but also all of the other individuals and roles that are assigned to it. So I can choose to reallocate that that time or the project to a different time. I can also reassign that work. So if I click into the project, I can see the individuals who are assigned, and I can either replace that resource with someone else. I can remove them. I can simply unstaff that individual and reassign it to the generic role. So it gives me a lot of opportunity to change, to not only immediately see who's assigned, but also then make changes to who's assigned if I need to, or make changes to the timing of that project so that I can determine where my constraints are and what are the implications of changing that. Now, one other thing I can do that has an impact on resource constraints is I can also look sort of at the reverse at the project level. So you'll see that I have like a red line above this specific project, right? And so what that means is there's a resource constraint for that duration of that project. And so what I can do is I can also reprioritize to guarantee resources. So the higher priority projects in MeisterPlan get the highest priority of resources allocated to them. And what that means is if I look at this, for example, if I click on my highest priority project and then I look down at the histograms below, you'll see the darkest line, right? The green line here is at the bottom of my chart, right? So that's essentially the first work that's getting assigned to these people, and therefore it's the most protected work in terms of resource constraints. And so one way that I can change where the resource constraint is is I can simply prioritize projects differently. And so you'll see now as I decrease the priority of this project, that the allocation within those roles rises up in the stack. And now I've gotten to the point where this project actually has a resource constraint, and the projects above it no longer have that same resource constraint. And so, if you think about the dimensions that you can use to control what your resource constraints are, I can either have different people working on it, I can have people working on it at a different time, or I can reprioritize the work so that people are working on different projects instead. And so getting back to my previous discussion, this gives you a very quick and easy way to identify what are the implications of making any of those recommended changes. So what I've showed you so far assumes that we're making very subjective decisions on how we prioritize projects. And the truth is that a lot of project prioritization is very subjective. But you'll also notice that if I hover over each of these projects, you'll see some metadata about the projects pop up. And about 2/3 of the way down that box that popped up, you'll see some colored boxes that talk about things like strategy fit, payback period, risk level, business goal. So those are customizable fields that align with your organization's priorities. And what you do is when you input that information, you can give it a score, like a relative value. And then as your projects are being allocated, you can in this case, write strategy fit. So there's a medium strategic fit for this specific project. Payback period's 1 to 2 years, but it's pretty low risk, right? And so based on the scores and the relative values that I give those, we will automatically calculate what we think the rank is for that project. And so in this case, you'll see I've got it ranked 4th, but what I can do is I can actually sort by the project score, and you'll see that that now my Jira integration actually got dropped down to number 7 based on the score. And so I can use some of those, and I can do that across all of my projects. So I can auto sort everything to show, based on the strategic objectives and the other data that we've put in, what's the objective score that you would give this project in terms of its value to the business? And then you can then go back and have a discussion around, how does that compare with the subjective conversation that we're having around what work that we want to commit to. So as a result, I can also, or not as a result, but in addition to that, I can also do things like you'll see that I can have project milestones, and those milestones can have dependencies on other milestones. And so if I change project prioritization or timing and I break some of those dependencies, you'll see now things are highlighted in red. You'll also see again, as I'm scrolling the timeline for this particular group of projects, that it changes in real time what the resource allocation is. And again, in this particular case, that's a group of projects that I'm showing. And so I can look into this and say, well, this group seems to be creating a lot of resource constraints. So maybe I need to split this project into 2 different parts. And so now I can extend the second part later, right? This doesn't need to be done until the end of the year or next year, or maybe not. Or I can simply remove one of these projects from the program, and now it doesn't, the entire program doesn't create those dependencies. But it gives me the opportunity to bundle projects together and see what the implication is of a collection of work on our resources in addition to just the individual work, and then I can customize accordingly. And then finally, again, there's a much deeper level of detail in terms of how you can customize this. I can create scenarios, which are basically a snapshot of this work that show me, that allow me to compare, do my what if analysis. So as I'm moving these dates around and as I'm suggesting that maybe we prioritize this and maybe we deprioritize this, I don't have to mess with my actual project data, right? And this isn't touching your live project data. It's not pushing back to it, but I don't have to mess with my plan of record that shows what we're actually committed to now. But I can do a what if analysis and say, well, what if we delayed this by a year? What implication is that going to have? But also I can look at subsets of this data. So I can give, for example, individual project managers a view that show just the work that they're assigned to, right? So that can be really helpful because this takes into account, all of the resource allocation takes into account all of the projects that these people and roles are assigned to. But it's just showing me the projects that I'm personally responsible for. And so it gives me a really quick way to go and see, okay, well, I've got, a bunch of constraints on senior developers, and it actually looks like it's this one individual. And so now I can go have a very specific conversation that's based on actual data that says, it looks like Tim Saunders has, is far over allocated, and I need him to perform this work in this specific time frame. So now I can have a conversation around how do we solve that, right? Do we want to push that work out? Do we want to reassign it to someone else? Maybe we need to hire more people, but I can have that conversation with actual information and data instead of, hey, it feels like Tim's got too much on his plate, right? Which I think is a lot of times how these decisions get made. And then also this is helpful because I can look at things like just the projects that we have already committed to and that are being executed. I can look at just a review of the projects that are being proposed that we may want to take on. I can compare, after I perform a what-if analysis, I can compare that against what my current plan of record is, so I can give a nice visual cue to leadership about the changes we're recommending as a business and how that looks like versus what we were doing before. And then finally, I can even do things like run reports that show a different level of detail or a different style of detail when I look at things like maybe I want to run a report on demand by role and resource, and I can get a really high level view that shows, it's interesting that our junior developer requirements or demands and our senior developer demands are significantly going up over time. And so maybe that's an indication that we need to think about doing some hiring and, at some point here. So again, just a nice, quick, data-driven visualization that shows, what's going on. And then I can even drill down into individual allocations and what these people are working on and get a nice graphical representation of, this person, their allocation is being decreased over time. And so is that an indication that they're working on longer term projects, or is that an indication that we're underutilizing them, or are they on vacation during that time? Great opportunity to show, just using real data, what's going on within your business so that you can make those decisions. And so with that, again, there's a much greater level of detail that ResultsPositive can get into in terms of how to roll this out for your business. But with that, I'll open it up to questions and hopefully answer whatever questions you have.
Yeah, I've gone ahead and opened up some of the lines. We had a couple of questions regarding staffing profiles. Fonda, if you're available, do you want to ask those yourself, or is there a specific view you're looking for?
Oh, I can. My question is, how does this integrate with the current staffing profiles and the that are already in the PPM? I mean, is it pulling that information from there?
Yeah, great question. So so there are several ways you can do that. Sorry, I paused, sharing my screen there. So what you'll see is that we have all your resources listed within MeisterPlan, and there are a number of ways to get those resources into MeisterPlan. Sometimes that's through an API integration where it just pulls those resources from whatever tool you're already using to manage them. Sometimes people just type them in. We've got Excel templates that help for bulk uploading, but if you already have them in a third-party system, then often the easiest way to do that is to integrate so that you can just pull that data directly in. And you'll see that we've got details not just about roles and names, but also, maybe if they're temporary employees, you can give start and end dates. You can determine what part of the business they're in. So for example, if you only want to assign people who are in a specific geographic location, right, then you're not going to assign consulting work in Texas to someone who's based in Spain, right? You can do that, and then you can even have individual skills, which I think I saw was another question that someone had asked. I can have specific skills, and so now I can actually look at what specific skills align to specific projects I'm working on. So if I need a language or a programming language, for example, then I can have that ability built in. And then even the ability to have things like paid time off or sick leave accounted for. We've had customers integrate with HR systems, or sometimes it's just manual, but you can also have that taken into account as well. And so then when you're allocating resources, that in addition to things like what calendar is this person committed to? So, are they operating based on a US calendar and therefore the holidays that happen in the United States or somewhere else? Gives you the ability to take all of that data into account. So when you're assigning them, MeisterPlan will recognize all those factors, and therefore that person will be or will not be available during the relevant times.
Hey, Fonda, this is John. Good question there on the staffing profile. And so what we've done so far is map that to the Excel, and you can do the Excel loading, and we're in the process of putting together an automated integration from PPM into a MeisterPlan. But really, to do that from the Excel perspective, it's pulling in your resource pools and some of the roles and such, as you can see here, as well as then bringing in the staffing profile, so you've got the project and then the resource demand. But we'll highlight that as next steps as kind of a workshop that we're offering for customers.
Okay, so then this is really, you pull your data from this, you can do the analysis, figure out what you're going to do. If you're using HP PPM, then you'd need to go back and do any adjustments there once you have finalized what you're doing. Is that practically kind of how that works?
Yeah. So
yes, that's how that works. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, technically, right, there's an API, and so you could have MeisterPlan automatically update, your HP PPM, for example. But what we have found pretty universally is that when you tell a project manager that some third-party system may update critical dates and assignments for their projects without their, personal involvement, you get a lot of pushback, right? And so that automated updating is something that people have a pretty fanatical response to, that what they really typically want to do, and in our Lean PPM methodology, this is kind of what we prescribe, is that you build your plan of record, you make a recommendation, and I think someone had a question in here about something like that too, where if I do my what-if analysis, I can then actually click a button to make that my new plan of record. And then share that with the project managers and say, okay, now you need to go update your individual projects and your individual resource assignments accordingly. And that's mostly just because they want to be in control of their projects, right? The buck stops with them in terms of the execution. And so that's what we find almost universally.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I understand that. Okay. Thank you.
I got a quick question on that. Once you set your, I guess, like what your portfolio is going to look like, or what you're no longer doing a what-if analysis, and you've decided on a path forward. Is there a summary report or something somewhere that would give you a list of all the changes that you made and which projects that's going to affect? Because it seems like it would be a lot to try to go through an entire list of projects and figure out where all the changes were, rather than go and update your other systems accordingly.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So there are kind of two ways that manifests itself. So first, when creating, just in the interest of time, I don't know that I'm going to go through the whole process, but when creating what we call a scenario, right? So your plan of record is sort of, this is the official plan. And then you can create a scenario, which is like a snapshot of that, and that's where you do your what-if analysis. And then our recommendation is, when you have a proposal for what you want to do moving forward, how you want to change your plan, then you will name that your proposed portfolio, for example, right? And that's what you go into your review meeting with executive leadership and say, this is what we're suggesting we do. When everyone's agreed, then you can click a button and say, make this my new plan of record. And then both in that process, first of proposing it, you can show how your new plan compares to the old plan. It just shows sort of on the Gantt, it shows sort of a little gray bar that shows where the project used to be and then where it is today. But also, you're exactly right, there's a summary report that shows all of the detailed changes, and that's presumably what you would hand out to individual project managers, for example, and say, this is how we're going to execute moving forward.
just like shifting out resources, and maybe this project's no longer a priority. You might need to shift your actual project dates on this.
Yep. So all of that gets captured, and again, it's a comparison analysis, and so it says here's what's changed with each of these projects, and that's often what people tend to go do the work from.
Okay, thank you.
I was just going to say that looks like about the end of the questions that we'd received via the chat function, and I think we just had a couple closing statements here at the end of the presentation with some more contact details.
Yeah, so I just wanted to thank everyone for attending our webinar today. Thanks so much for Brian and MeisterPlan and our partnership there. We feel that this solution really provides you with the opportunity to simplify your planning, speed up the planning process, and free up time to focus on execution. And so we have two offers for you today. One is to get access to a free trial, so you can go to resultspositive.com/MeisterPlan trial and register for a free trial. Also, if you'd like, we'll conduct a free planning workshop where we'll demonstrate the solution. We'll walk through how we can have that integrated with MeisterPlan through some of your various use cases. So please reach out and let us know if you'd like to participate. Like I said, for the trial, feel free to log in using the URL, and also just follow up with us here on the free workshop. We'll also be following up with you as well. But thanks again for attending today. Really do appreciate it. And Brian, thanks again for the presentation and the very nice overview of the solution.
Yeah, thank you, John. Thanks, everyone.